So I'm going to look at some more grammar emails. So Anon replied to me and Kate discussing this sentence, make him angry. And after my arguing with Kate some, I said, consider the example, make the steel strong. I think the strength refers to steel, not the making. Now that I think about it, isn't angry and make him angry just an object complement? And note, for all these, I've been at least treating it as an imperative, so there's an implied you make the steel strong, you make him angry. So that's the subject. So make is the verb. And that's all uncontroversial, as far as I know, with other people on the list. Nobody's objecting to that part. So the only controversial part is maybe how we analyze the end part. The part after the verb. The part after the main verb. I want to be very specific. So Anon says, giving something a name doesn't mean you understand it, it just means other people have seen the same issue before and named it. It doesn't mean they understand how or why it works. Yeah, the brown-throated thrush. If you haven't, I'm not going to go into it, but if you're unfamiliar with this Feynman story, I recommend either reading it or there's a YouTube video if you prefer videos. And I can't, if you prefer videos, that's cool. I'm making videos, so I can't really hold that against you. So, yeah. So that's... So I'm reading Anon's point with the background of knowledge of this Feynman point. I guess I'll go over it a little bit since... So, I guess Feynman's like relating the story of his father, I think, explaining the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something. And he says to the younger Feynman, see that bird? It's a brown-throated thrush, but in Germany it's called a Hasenvogel, and in Chinese they call it a Chungling. But even if you know all those names for it, you still know nothing about the bird. You only know something about people, what they call the bird. But, there's... you just know labels. You don't understand. Like the bird's reproduction, or whether it makes nests, or how it navigates, or any of the actual stuff that the bird does. So back to Anon. Anon says, the name just means it is a special case. The name just means the, quote, it is a special case, close quote, theory. It's just a fancy way of saying some verbs are special and take two objects and/or complements rather than the usual one. That's not wrong, but it leaves open the possibility that there's a better explanation. Maybe reading it as having an implied infinitive to relate the two complements is better, because it gives you a full version that's clear with no special case, and clarifies how the two complements are related. I like the I agree that we should try and understand things more and move. You don't want to have lots of special cases. So I had actually read this a bit earlier, and it was in the back of my mind when I did my earlier post replying about a bit about post-noun modifiers, which is my trying to link things together somewhat and link together some special cases in something that's more like overarching. And then Anon also says, in a different email, Anon says, replying to himself, or maybe it's another Anon. You can never tell. Special cases don't normally just appear arbitrarily, they develop. On the other hand, maybe it developed in some other way, there's some other logic to it. Typo. Not a big deal. I haven't ruled that out, but I haven't thought of a good alternative explanation either. As an attempt at an alternative view, it could be kind of like an appositive, but I don't think this very clear explains it very well unless it was somehow explained further. Right. So that's sort of the direction that I was going in when I started thinking about post-noun modifiers and saying, well, again, like normally if something's modifying a noun, like an adjective, then it comes before. So I started writing a bit about this idea I have of post-noun modifiers as a grammatical concept. And I just talk about the usual case of adjectives coming, or I should say, when something modifies a noun, normally it's an adjective and it comes before the noun, like John hit the red ball, red comes before ball, Justin likes cheesy pizza, cheesy comes before pizza. But sometimes modifiers can come after. So sometimes modifiers of noun can come after the noun. They can also be things other than adjectives, such as other nouns. I'm going to call these post-noun modifiers. I'm tentatively going to call these post-noun modifiers because I'm really not married to the name. So post-positive adjectives are adjectives that appear after the... Right, so this is more of a clarifying note than the main explanation, but I just wanted to get it out. Note that there is some overlap regarding post-positive adjectives. Note that there is some overlap here with object complements. I think a post-positive adjective can also be an object complement, e.g., we need someone strong. Strong is an adjective. It's post-positive. And because someone is an object, subject we, verb need, object someone. Then strong is an object complement. But not all post-positive adjectives are object complements. For example, nothing important happened. Important is modifying nothing. like the word nothing. And not all object complements are postpositive adjectives. For example, and Diane calls me her buddy. Buddy is a noun object complement. Oops. Alright, I think that makes sense. So I'm not sure about this. So in Wikipedia, it says that adjectives must appear postpositively in English when they qualify almost all compound and some simple indefinite pronouns. And it only gives one. It gives one site for a book that I can't find an electronic version of. I found another page. It was linked from the Wikipedia article on postpositive adjectives, and it gives an interesting explanation. It says, most adjectives can occur both before and after a noun. Blue sea, the sea is blue. So this is an adjective. And it's an adjective here too, but it's being connected through the linking verb. The old man, the man is old. Happy children, the children are happy. Adjectives in the first position before the noun are called attributive adjectives. Those in the second position after the noun are called predicative adjectives. Notice that predicative adjectives do not occur immediately after the noun. Instead, they follow a verb. Sometimes an adjective does occur immediately after a noun, especially in certain institutionalized expressions. The Governor General, the Princess Royal, times past. We refer to these as postpositive adjectives. Postposition is obligatory when an adjective modifies a pronoun. So see, this is, because I found the Wikipedia article addresses this, but I found it kind of confusing the way it was explaining it. So this just says, if an adjective modifies a pronoun, it has to be. Right, so I was thinking about these examples that this page gives of postpositive adjectives, and I'm not really satisfied with the explanation of the cases. And the reason that I'm not satisfied is because I can't see why it would be limited to I'm doubtful that the case that the principle behind the case just applies to pronouns, and I was thinking about it some, and I think I may have figured it out. I don't know. So what I what I figured out was that postpositive adjectives, what makes them okay might be that they're standing for a relative clause. And so it's not really an issue of following a pronoun, but it's more an issue of whether they're standing for a relative clause. And so I talk about this first example where I came up with a full sentence out of their partial example on this web page. And I said, Everyone present voted on the bill. So present is a post-positive adjective. So that's okay. But then I say, now consider the sentence. The senators present voted on the bill, and that seems okay to me. It's not how I would necessarily say it, so I say it's a bit non-standard, but okay. What would be more standard is a relative clause. The senators who were present voted on the bill. So then I say, I wonder if the real principle behind post-positive adjectives is that they're shortcuts for not writing out a relative clause. Their position after the noun they modify is fine because of the following fact. Within the relative clause they're standing for, they were actually coming after a linking verb. So that's what makes it okay. And so consider these other examples. So I'm just going to continue developing these examples into full sentences. So those responsible will be found, right? So I looked at some other examples, and the UCL page describes stuff like the shortest route possible as examples of how post-positive adjectives are commonly found together with superlative attributive adjectives. But I think that the same idea that I was saying about the post-positive adjective being a sort of shortcut or shorthand representation of a relative clause applies to these as well. Like the shortest route, that was possible. The worst conditions, that were imaginable. The best hotel, that was available. Now you could see why you would want to not necessarily write that out all the time in terms of the pithiness of the expression. Yeah, I just looked up pithiness to make sure I was using it right. But I think my standing for a relative clause interpretation is better because it sort of captures more and gives more of a principle. Because, like, the way you could think about it is if you could easily substitute a relative clause there, then a post-positive adjective should be okay, I think. I mean, I haven't thought through tons of cases, but, like, I could see a limiting principle to it, which I think is, if that limiting principle were to actually hold up to criticism and apply to lots of actual real-world grammar, word usage cases, it would be better than having like a list of special rules that you have to keep in mind. Oh, this is an interesting little note. It says, most adjectives can freely occur in both the attributive and the predicative positions. However, a small number of adjectives are restricted to one position only. For example, the adjective main, the main reason, can only occur in the attributed position. Predicative, the reason is main. I'm going to end the video here.